When Denard Wilson was hired as a defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, the main objective was to play a pressure heavy match coverage, meaning that they wanted to press outside. To do that, they brought in L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs and Cheeto Awuzie. Now, the problem was neither one played the full season. So you had guys like Daryl Baker Jr. and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. who had to play on the outside. Brownlee had the sixth highest press rate in the NFL last year. It was well over 50%. And to me, that really signals to what they wanted to do. Now, one of the problems and issues you have when you have these press aggressive corners is what do you do when your receiver either chips or he doesn't release downfield? How do you find work? A lot of times in this sense, these corners get stuck with their eyes on the quarterback and they don't ever drop. We're going to take a look at a clinic example from Brownlee of how to work in a match 3 when my receiver doesn't go down the field. Where do I slot in and how do I help the defense? So let's take a look at how this works and the functionality of when you get a nub tight end or a single receiver that chips before he releases. We're going to take a look at a 3rd and 5 from the Titans against the Vikings. Now, 3rd and 5 is typically a very man-dominant down in the NFL. It's where you typically see the most cover one in terms of percentage. Now, the Titans are going to go ahead and line a bunch of guys on the line. Now, again, another typical look that you see on 3rd down. You are going to have a bunch, and we're going to actually get a kind of that push motion that we see so much. And this is really just a man zone indicator. They're just moving a guy. And not only that, but if it's man, they're going to force these defensive backs to communicate. So it works in 2 ways. Is if we are playing cover 1, the quarterback is going to force those DBs to communicate how they're now going to trade this off. Because if you just stay here, we can play lock and level, we can play in and out, we can do a bunch of different things. So we can send the point man here, we can play in and out here, or we can just go ahead and lock on who we're stacked. Once you do this, now we have to either show our cards or we have to communicate. And you would be shocked, even at the NFL level, how that quick motion pre-snap can get these guys to freeze and people forget who they're supposed to block. So here we get a clear zone indicator as McCreary moves out and our safety starts to move back. So Darnold knows right now that this is going to be zone coverage, but our focus is going to be here on the bottom. We have our X receiver is very tight. He's essentially going to be in a blocking stance. So you have his outside foot up. He's tight to the tackle. We have our running back here as well. At the snap of the ball, you see he's going to chip this defensive end, and it's going to help that running back set up inside. So the running back is actually going to be in charge of one of these linebackers. Once the ball is snapped, the receiver is going to chip this defensive end. You can see Brownlee is looking at it right here. So our high-low concept is really between these guys. We're going to have our safety work low, and we're going to have our corner work high. And that's where this zone principle comes in. It's still a match concept, though, because if that receiver goes vertical, he's clearly going to take it. If our running back chips releases, he's going to take it as well. Here are our 2 hook drops. We have our flat drop, deep third, and then our closed post. Remember, we're trying to close the post. We're running cover 3 here. The key here, though, is eyes. And then where do I go next? So earlier I mentioned a lot of corners in these match schemes, they see this right here. He blocks, and then he's just going to stop his feet. Brownlee does a great job of communication. He essentially passes it off to 44 and says, hey, I'm out. So you know you're not getting a vertical route here by 4. He's blocking, which means he's not going to block and then just jet up the field. Typically, it's just going to be exactly what we get here, which is an out or a snag concept, or he runs across the field as we get verticals coming the other side. So the moment that he signals that, it also tells 44, I'm now in charge of this, but it detaches your weak hook player. So in cover 3, your weak hook player is the 3-up defender. He has to get vertical. Well, I'm not necessarily worried about this player. The corner can now assume the 3-up, which now tells these guys, you guys work in and out on number 4. If the back releases, you guys work in and out on the 2 receivers that are going to be low. Brownlee does a good job of working to the hash and then getting his eyes looking for this crossing route. I call it ride the hash, pick up trash. And this is exactly what you see. You see the physical point, meaning that he's communicating, hey, he's down, I'm out. I'm going to work to the hash. I get in a little bit of a crossover shuffle. I see that over route, and then I'm going to go latch on top of it right now. Darnold, as you can see, is the pocket is collapsing on him right here. He steps up in the pocket. He is covered. He's in the window. This looks open, but he turns around. He sees that this guy's coming, and he decides to bail from it. And he then tries to just, instead of flipping it to 4, he does the safe thing and just eats it for the sack. Regardless that the pressure got there, if Darnold would have had a clean pocket and he throws this, there's a high likelihood that that receiver gets knocked out by a hit, the ball gets tipped up to somebody with this safety behind it, or we have Brownlee step in front of it and pick it and then working to the sideline, potentially making a pick 6. So this is a really good example of how you defend either a nub tight end or an X-reduced receiver, somebody that they're going to then chip. When you get a chip, it's not going to be a vertical stem. He now works to the hash. He's looking for trash back inside. He's not skyrocketing to the post because we already have a post player. So him sitting here alleviates a lot of issues for this linebacker getting deep, especially coming from the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have to cut. This isn't like Tampa where he's got to come from the line of scrimmage and scream through, making sure he sees this. You can see that he doesn't even hinge open as the weak hook player to find that 3 up. He stays down with the safety. Now Brownlee fits in there. He slots right into that high intermediate area. There's nowhere for Darnold to go, and you end up getting a sack. Really good example of how to play those condensed sets to the weak side by Brownlee.